Greetings and salutations. It is Friday, and you know what that means.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, The F and Marks, and this is episode 373.
I'm Jay. He is.
And I am, let's go Giants. I'm kidding. I am the brainless one.
Well, isn't that the same thing? I mean, there's a fresh hope with every new season, but I mean, within basically like 4 or 5 weeks,
Cousin Jay, when it was one of the major sports pages was posting the top 5 teams they expect to actually have a worse season, or their wins total from the previous season were going to go down. 4 of the 5 teams were double-digit win teams, and then there was the Giants.
I'm surprised the Patriots aren't on that list.
Well, they can't really get any worse than what they were.
I think I might name my fantasy team. I don't like Mac Jones anymore, man.
Mac Jones is all elite. But, this is a very interesting week in professional wrestling. I apologize for missing last week's show, everyone. I had family come down, so I was spending some time with El Diablo Blanco.
Yeah.
Ole. But this was a fun week for wrestling. We had Bash at Berlin on Saturday. We had NXT TakeOver No Mercy on Sunday. There's a lot of interesting news and tidbits that also happened this week on top of those 2 big shows. So, Cousin Jay, I have to defer it to you. Where would you like to start this week's episode? And if you want to continue talking about the Giants and how brainless that organization is, I am for that for the next 2 hours too. But wrestling it is.
I'm not going to go for the low-hanging fruit. I'm going to go with Bash in Berlin. Let's talk about the show. Let's talk about all the things that happened there, and just get into that.
Honestly, if I had done predictions last week, if I was on the show, I was going to go 4 for 5. The only outcome from last week's from Bash in Berlin that I did not see happening, because I was kind of surprised that they did the booking decision that they made, was putting the tag team titles back on Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. I stunned. I was surprised that they're continuing the hot potato that championship just a little bit, not as much as they were before, but it does seem like they're starting to hot potato the championship. Other than that, I mean, the pay-per-view, or I'm sorry, the premium live event was kind of predictable. Doesn't mean it was a bad show, but the predictability was definitely
I would say outcomes for me were predictable.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 100. But the thing is, I would not have predicted the ending of the Orton-Gunther match to end as it did. There were things like that along the way where I'm like, okay, that was interesting. I love the fact that, like, during the strap match, my favorite spot was when CM Punk was, hitting the turnbuckles the same time that Drew was trying to, steal one from him. I like, as much as it was predictable that CM Punk would win, him doing things like that to at least make it interesting, that was good. Clearly we knew that Kevin Owens was not going to win.
And
now, it seemed like it was ripe for the picking that he was going to turn on Cody and just beat the crap out of him. That didn't happen. So, again, predictions were predictable, but as far as kind of some of the nuances within the matches, I would say was a little less so.
My 3 biggest takeaways from this was I was, too, just like you, very surprised by the ending where Gunther choked out Randy Orton. I would have liked to have seen. I don't know. As much as I am a fan of old school professional wrestling, and yes, the sleeper hold is a very iconic finishing move. I mean, it was Roddy Piper's finishing move for a very long time. Ted DiBiase had the $1 Million Dream, which was a version of the sleeper hold. But the thing with Gunther is that I really enjoyed him with the power bombs, hitting those drop kicks, like just everything he does. And he does everything so good. He's so crisp. He's honestly, he is the total package wrestler that you build around because he can work with anybody. But I'm getting a little with the whole sleeper hold being his finisher where he's beating people that way now. I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of over it.
So specifically for that match, I thought it made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
His arm was so beaten down from what Randy Orton had done through the shoulder, through throwing him into the steps, through punishing that arm throughout. He, storyline wise, he couldn't get him up to do the power bomb.
Right.
It made sense not to have that as part of what he was doing. So completely kind of get the fact that happened. I love the fact that for the first time, because guess what? Last month, I think it was after SummerSlam, I was like, why does every heavyweight title match need to have an F finish?
Right.
We finally got one. It was a clear victory for Gunther after he had a ref-assisted defeat of Randy Orton at the last crown jewel to become the king of the ring. At least this time, it was very definitive. I thought it was an awesome match.
Oh, the match itself was excellent. I enjoyed the hell out of that. That was two of the very best to ever do it. Were in that ring, performing at a high level. I also like the fact that Gunther and Randy Orton shook hands after the match. That was a nice, excuse me, that was a nice gesture. I wasn't expecting it, so the fact that it happened and they shook hands, I really appreciated that. The more they give me Gunther, the more I like this dude. He cuts.
And the subtlety also with the fact that he shook with the left hand because his right arm was so damaged. As much as he could have kind of went like this with the right arm, but he didn't.
He's so old school. He sells everything. He just knows how to tell a story. I've been saying this since they signed him and he was working at NXT UK. He is the best all-around wrestler that they have, not only in just WWE, in the world. I'm sorry. He is good in the ring. He is good on the mic, even for somebody who's clearly English is not his first language, and he speaks multiple languages too, which I also found out that Sheamus also speaks multiple languages, and I'm not just talking about, I don't think his Irish have. Yeah, he speaks German because there was a clip from them in Berlin with him and Gunther, and he was speaking in German, and I said, how can I not love Sheamus any more than the fact that this dude is multilingual when it comes to this stuff? But he's got, like I said, he's got the look. He's got the ring ability. He's got an aura of him. He knows how to cut a promo. He knows how to get a reaction from the fans. And this dude can work with anybody. Name me a wrestler in WWE you really don't want to see Gunther work with at any point. Oh, wait. That doesn't count because she's shit. Nobody wants to see Nia Jax work with anybody. I still have nightmares about that match she had with Michin or Mia Yim, whatever you want to call her, with that street fight where she bonsai dropped her on the trash. I was convinced she was dead. But that was one takeaway that from the premium live event. Another I love the ending of the Punk and Drew match. Absolutely loved that. It was so well done. I enjoyed it. That was my favorite match of the entire show. This is just me being a CM Punk mark. I'll admit that. But they're telling such a great story. They're rivalry of the year. No question whatsoever. They're rivalry of the year. And obviously we're going to get more into that when, we get into that a little bit more. Because it looks like they're not done, even though CM Punk was like, I'm done with Drew after Bash in Berlin.
He said that after SummerSlam too.
Yes, and, Drew McIntyre did his best Lee Corso impersonation. Not so fast, my friend.
Yeah.
Beat the holy hell out of him on Monday night, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And really the only other thought that I had about the premium live event was how much fun that mixed tag team match was.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the heck out of that. And Rhea Ripley getting, that pin on Liv Morgan the way she did, her getting her legs wrapped around Dominic Mysterio the way she did. It was just so perfect. And then the celebration afterwards, and they're like, best way to celebrate is eating chicken tenders and with ranch sauce or whatever. Oh my God, it was so good.
Yeah.
Like I said, I wasn't disappointed. I thought it was a little predictable, but not in a bad way.
The only match for me that didn't track very well was the women's tag team match. There was so much sloppiness, so many botches, and just awkwardness throughout. I don't know who it was that was causing all of this, but it just was not well executed at many points. I mean, I figured that they were going to put the titles back on Bianca and Jade. It's like, why put them back in that match to have them lose again? When they lost the first time, wasn't it a triple threat match?
It was a triple threat. It was them and the two teams that wrestled at Bash at Berlin. And obviously the rematch will be on Raw this week as well, or next week. And I think it was Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark were the third tag team, if I'm not mistaken.
So, yeah, I mean, and in the chat, Chris Brown was saying, yeah, I guess the women's title is becoming the new 24/7. So
the sad part is the 24/7 championship was more over than the women's tag team titles will ever be.
Yeah. And Tim said, F the Hulk Hogan and F Sasha Banks.
Who's that? Who's that second name?
I don't know.
I don't know that Sasha Banks woman anymore because she no longer works for WWE. She walked out kicking and screaming because she didn't like booking decisions for a second time.
All right, this is going to be controversial for you, Brainless One.
Bring it on.
Tim says, I do think Big Bronson Reed is a dark horse for Marquee Award for wettest hair.
I'm not even going to say anything. What's the point? Why am I going to say anything? We all you ain't got to lie to kick it, Timmy, okay? You're an effing Marks Hall of Famer. And the fact that I had to witness you and another fellow effing Marks Hall of Famer going at it on Facebook just brought a tear to my eye. And then you had to do this where you're trying to steal the most important Marquee Award to the most important wrestler in the history of the industry. I kid, he's not really the most important in the history of the industry, but he is the biggest star right now. Don't care what anybody says. I'll argue that one, and I'm okay with arguing that one. Roman Reigns will once again win wettest hair Marquee. I'm sorry. I am as certain as that as I am certain that the Giants will not be the worst team in the NFC East this year.
So, quick question. Perhaps there could be an evolution of this award at some point where we just call it the Roman Reigns Wettest Hair of the Year Award, where he's officially like it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, and then we let the second Wettest Hair of the Year, maybe that's what the Marquee Award should be.
I'm going to quote WWE Hall of Famer on this one. Wrong. You can't be any more right when you are wrong. We are not going to not give it to Roman Reigns, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Roman Reigns is the only wrestler in the history of professional wrestling to have a song that mentions how wet his hair is. If we had a Marquee Award for the wrestler who slams a tornado award, obviously Matt Hardy's going to win that award every single year. This isn't like a controversial one with like the best beer drinking wrestler award, because I saw Sheamus just put down Guinnesses in Ireland for the Georgia Tech Florida State game a couple weeks ago, and he was pounding those down like I've never seen a human being pound down Guinnesses before. But you also have Stone Cold Steve Austin. What? You got the Sandman. That's always a possibility, although he might have quit drinking. What? As long as Bobby Roode and James Storm are around, there's still always a possibility because they were beer money.
Right.
So I can't fathom a Marquee Award show without Roman Reigns walking out with the wettest hair Marquee Award. I am sorry. That would be like if we gave the Brainless of the Year award to anybody other than me, and I still haven't won it yet.
I now badly want to see those two water buffaloes have a match. How drenched will the first 3 rows get when Bronson Reed goes against Roman Reigns?
It's going to be like the show at SeaWorld with Shamu when she jumps out of the water.
There's that. It could be like a R.I.P. Being in a Gallagher show. Where he had the sledge-o-matic with the watermelon?
The watermelons, yes.
Yes.
Wow, I haven't heard that name in forever.
Well, he's been dead a few years, and you know.
That's sad. He was actually kind of funny.
But yeah, so yeah, outside of the women's tag match, you know, with several botches, several just awkward moments, I thought it was a really good card. Outcomes were fine to me. You know, maybe building for the future. I mean, I think part of this storyline with Captain Cupcake could be leading him to, like, he's not signing a new contract. So it's almost like his last hurrah before, you know, maybe he just goes away for a little bit of time, like Becky Lynch, and then comes back.
That would be absolute. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
I was going to say, he could just be going to, you know, help the family business. You know, that hollowed out tree ain't going to fill itself.
I was about to say that if he does not re-sign with WWE, that is going to be absolutely devastating for the caterers, because who's going to eat all the cupcakes now? And if they really wanted to get Kevin Owens to turn heel on Cody Rhodes, here's a bit of advice, Cody, WWE, Triple H, whoever's listening, Bruce Pritchard. God, I hope it's not Bruce Pritchard. You want Cody to have Kevin Owens turn on him? Have a segment on SmackDown tonight where Cody Rhodes walks into catering and he sees Kevin Owens standing at the table looking at the cupcakes, and there's only one left. And Cody comes in there, says, "Hey, Kevin," swipes the cupcake and starts eating it. There is nothing, and I promise you there is nothing in this world that's going to infuriate that man more than if Cody Rhodes went in there and stole his cupcake.
We've seen that face before.
We've seen that face before. It's what got us blocked 8 years ago. 8 years ago, Kevin Owens blocked us. And now 8 years later, he is still my least favorite wrestler in WWE if we do not count Nia Jax. I'm sorry. I will never forgive him for the fact that he blocked us for that. I can understand some of the egregious things that people have said to people over the years on social media. I cannot fathom how somebody who's supposed to be a trained professional in sports entertainment can be so soft. This is like when the Big Show blocked us because we said he made too many face and heel turns.
True.
I mean, yeah, it's true. That's why I never understood why he blocked us. If he blocked everybody that ever said that he made too many face and heel turns, there would be like 17 people on his timeline.
Right.
So, but I really am a little surprised that they did not pull the trigger on a heel turn with Kevin Owens, because they've really been teasing it the last few weeks. There seems to be a little bit of tension because, you know, Cody gave him the opportunity for the title match. Kevin didn't want to take it. And I'm a little surprised that they didn't pull the trigger on it on Saturday.
Again, as much as there was predictability within, like,
the results,
some of the things storyline-wise, nuance, they didn't go forward with. So it's like, storyline-wise, they didn't necessarily, like, do exactly what you thought. We didn't get Captain Cupcake being, you know, hostess hero for the night. And see, look, I did that a half second before you started drinking.
Good call. Good job.
But so they decided to wait to have his hostess moment some other time. Will it end up being tonight? Will they wait till the debut of USA on SmackDown?
They're going to do something crazy for that next week. I don't know if they'll do anything tonight because it is the last night on Fox, and kind of fuck Fox for the fact that they're dumb enough to let WWE go to the USA Network, and then the other part of WWE goes to Netflix. So it's sad that you had the top wrestling promotion that gets you at least 2 million views each and every week for ratings. For all the AEW fans out there, 2 million views is what you get in about a month for Dynamite. Sorry. I made it 20 minutes, okay? I know that's not a personal record or anything, but I made it 20 minutes without insulting AEW. But speaking of AEW and Kevin Owens, when his contract does end, do we see him taking time off, spending time with family, or does he go and play tiddlywinks and patty cake with the Buckaroos and Jungle Jerk off in AEW?
If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, yeah, I think so. I don't think so now. I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll go home for a little bit, but I think he'll come back to WWE. I think he realizes what a kind of shit show is going on behind the scenes at the other place. And as much as they might put the World Heavyweight Championship on him to go over there, if his ultimate goal and like his character's ultimate goal is always, doing the thing for his family, is the best thing for his family him winning more titles and not necessarily making more money, or does he want to make more money and be able to supply for his kids? And I think the one caveat I will put to this is if AEW says, hey, we'll pay you 80% of what WWE's doing, but you only have to work 2 days a week as opposed to 5.
Tony Khan is going to offer him some astronomical amount of money, because I can only imagine what he offered Swerve Strickland for his new contract, which, by the way, I'm one of the few people out there that absolutely believes that Swerve deserves that contract extension, because that man has been busting his ass. So the people who are upset about Swerve getting that contract can kiss my ass. Yeah. And this is my point to mention to everybody. At the end of the day, I do not, from the bottom of my heart, want to see AEW go under. I just want to see the Young Bucks' career end. I want to see Tony actually book a competent show. And honestly, the only people who make me want to see AEW go under are their fans. I'm sorry. It's their fans. Their fans and Meltzer. I can't stand their fans are awful. I'm sorry. You could take a Yankee fan, a Cowboy fan, a Laker fan, and a Duke fan. A lot of times they're all the same person, and just put them all together, and they're still not as bad as a freaking AEW fan. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've been on this planet for 41 years. I have never, ever dealt with a bunch of individuals like AEW fans. They're awful. I can't even deal with them. I am almost at 200 blocks on Twitter. I was at 140 not even a month ago. And it's mostly AEW fans. Yes, granted, there's a few dumbass Giant fans that are just pissing me off because they're stupid and they don't know football. But they're bad. It's awful. But I could see Kevin Owens going there. I'm sorry. The Bucks are, the EVPs. Kevin Owens did that interview this week, and I asked him about his relationship with Punk. He goes, I don't talk to Punk. We don't cross paths. We're not friends. We don't talk. And it's like, I could see that because he's probably butthurt because of the fact that CM Punk, number one, is a bigger deal than all three of them combined. But the fact is that CM Punk made his freaking friends in Kalamazoo look like a bunch of jerk-offs. I'm sorry. And I can see Kevin Owens going over there. They got all of their friends over there. That's why the Ricochet is over there now.
Mm.
And you want to talk about another person that did a 180 on? Fuck Ricochet. I saw the way he was talking to people on Twitter. He can kiss my ass too.
Mm.
You can watch the show. You don't have to just watch highlights of what I do. Man, nobody wants to watch that fucking show, dude. Bro, more people tune into WWE Speed on Twitter than they do to Dynamite. And you were the Speed champion. Not that I'm justifying that title or the fact that they're doing it, but come on. I could really see Kevin Owens going there. That's my point. I don't know what they're going to do with him in this heel turn. I'm more concerned about what's going to happen with Sami Zayn because I want to say they both signed at the same time for the same length. I would be absolutely devastated to see Sami Zayn leave WWE.
What do you think would happen in catering with Kevin Owens and Cassius Ohno? Would this get Cassius Ohno to get back in the ring?
Oh, no. Only if they have a pie eating contest. Well, hold on, wait. There's a lot of caveats to this, too. Because Kevin Owens could also go, is going there, because of the Bucks. Obviously, he can go head-to-head in a hot dog or cupcake eating contest with Cassius Ohno. Obviously, his partner in crime in the Hostess Heroes, Pac, is there. Granted, there's so much shit going on that's happening in AEW. I actually almost went cross-eyed like Shawn Michaels trying to understand it all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, HBK, for saying that. I really am. You're an absolute legend in the industry, and I'm sorry that I get a kick out of the fact that we have no idea what eye you were watching anybody with. They're like, he's got his eye on Joe Hendry. Really? Which one?
Maybe you should wear an eye patch. Which got me to thinking, like, I saw a reel this week, and I just got a comment about it. I really do.
Go ahead.
It didn't dawn on it's like when like expectations are shattered in some way, shape, or form, and then like you see the thing that was there all along. In the past, like year and a half, 2 years, what do Hook, Julia Hart, Jon Moxley, Andrade, while he was in AEW, Adam Page, and Daniel Bryanson all have in common?
You said Moxley too, right?
Yes.
Did you say Santana when he was there?
I did not mention Santana.
Santana was there because I too was looking it up because it's, we'll get to that point.
So what do they have in common?
They all tried to be Pierre. What was his name again? Jean-Pierre Lafitte. PCO. Pierre of the Quebecers. They all wore an eye patch.
And what does that mean?
They all wore an eye patch.
All wore an eye patch. Like, hey, I understand every once in a while, like we get the wrestlers with the taped ribs. That was Hogan's gimmick before WrestleMania 2.
I remember
after
that.
He got all those avalanches from King Kong Bundy. Saturday night's main event after he defeated Don Morocco, setting up WrestleMania 2's main event. And I remember seeing Jericho do that gimmick a time or two. You see people with the arm gimmick.
The mask. Thank you, Cody Rhodes, for one of the greatest additions to professional wrestling, the face mask.
But eye patches. Eye patches. That's just AEW. Quite honestly, with all the factions that AEW tends to have, and there's no link to the people within the faction sometimes, except for like we went to the bathroom at the same time, so I guess we should start something. Oh, okay. Thanks, QT Marshall. What are we going to call ourselves? QTV?
Hey, it could be worse. It's not like we're the factory anymore.
But they should have an eye patch faction.
The One-Eyed Willies?
Yes, the One-Eyed Willies, and they need to sign Paul Burchill to be part of this faction. And after what happened on Monday Night Raw, maybe Kairi Sane.
Cousin Jay.
I mean, Kairi Sane is already the pirate princess.
Yes.
But she wounded her eye, legit wounded her eye on Monday. She might be going with a patch too.
Cousin
What do you
Jay.
think about the patch faction?
First of all, I unfortunately need to tell you that Paul Burchill did not have a patch.
It doesn't matter. He was a pirate.
True. I Googled him. I Googled him again, and I Googled him a third time. And somehow, some way, that Katie Lee Burchill somehow came up on my thing too. Which they used to do that mixed tag team handicap match stupid shit when they were in ECW. But as in regards to the eye patch faction, no, we don't need any more factions in AEW.
Come on!
We don't need any more factions. Jay, that's their biggest
How
issue.
about a championship? The eye patch champion. Who's the best wrestler with one eye?
Only if they get Shawn Michaels to wrestle there too. I'm sorry, you can't have it that way or any other way. But
I want it that way.
But you know what, Cousin Jay? I'm actually glad that you did mention this. Because I did also see that reel because a certain co-host of mine of this very podcast sent me that reel. And I had to look through all 309 people in AEW who have worn an eye patch over the last 2 years. And it got me thinking. Because some of these are just really like, why? Like, why does everybody need to wear an eye patch? So it got me thinking. I have decided for this week, and I'm going to get this knocked out real quick this week. We're doing the top 10 list right now because this is the perfect segue because we're talking about eye patches. And it just so happens that this week that our top 10 list for the Brainless one for this week is the top 10 people who wore an eye patch in professional wrestling. For the record, I was this close to putting Paul Burchill, and I had to Google him because I did not want to give myself my own Brainless this week because of that. But here we go. Number 10, Naomi. Only because
I remember she had the patch.
That was when she broke I think the orbital bone. When she was, this was like years and years ago. That was back when that Russian lady that was trying to marry, I think it was Teddy Long, I think. Oksana.
Oh yes, Oksana.
Yeah, Naomi had a really cool eye patch. And you know, I said, I'm going to give Naomi some more love on this podcast because I have been one of her non-biggest fans for a long time, and I've actually enjoyed her since she's returned at the Royal Rumble for WWE. She got a lot better when she was in TNA Impact. I'll say that. So Naomi is number 10. Number 9, there's a guy named Pirata Morgan, who is a Mexican wrestler who's been wrestling since 1979. Who in CMLL in 1989 wrestled a match and actually lost his eye. So his gimmick wasn't even a gimmick. It was technically a lifestyle, which right there, you stroke my ego by having somebody live a gimmick as a lifestyle. So I was like, how could you not? How could you not have a one-eyed man in your thing? Now, granted, I would have done the same thing with Zeus if Zeus actually wore an eye patch.
I'm gonna guess not on the list because you want to talk about a bad MFer who probably should have had an eye patch. What was it? Vader whose eye came out against Dan Hansen.
It was
they just popped that sucker back in like Ric Flair plugs the pacemaker back in. And keep beating the hell out of each other.
My God.
Holy crap. He didn't even wear an eye patch. He just came back.
I saw the picture of his. It's funny. I actually saw the picture this week. Somebody had posted, it was either on Twitter or Instagram, the picture of Vader's eye out of the socket. I almost fainted. And it takes a lot to get me, like that.
He's gonna puke.
But yeah, Pirata Morgan was number 9. And yes, Vader should have probably wore one too. Number 8, I hate the fact that I put him on there, but I was trying to eliminate as many AEW people as I could just because of the fact that I can't. But this guy, we all know, would probably be in AEW right now if it wasn't for the fact that he was a piece of shit. But Marty Scurll wore an eye patch. Number 7, and for the life of me, in 372 previous episodes of this podcast, I think this individual was mentioned maybe once. Just because he was in an episode of Dark Side of the Ring, one of the first, in the last few seasons.
Yep.
You ready for this one, Cousin Jay?
Yes.
Scotty Riggs.
Oh, boy.
Scotty Riggs is an eye patch wearer. And for the second time ever in the history of this podcast, I have mentioned Scotty Riggs' name. Oh, I gotta wait for you to come back for this one. I gotta get the actual look on your face when I tell you number 6, because you might argue with me on this one. But we'll get back to number 6. Number 5 was Rocky Romero. He's been wearing one for a very long time. It's part of his gimmick too. Claudio Cesaro was 4, because he did actually wear an eye patch in WWE. And there you go, Cousin Jay. You mentioned Jon Moxley. You mentioned Daniel. you mentioned Moxley. You mentioned Daniel Bryanson. And obviously Claudio wore one. They were all part of, I don't know if they still are the Blackpool Combat Club or what the frig they're doing with that shit anymore. But yeah, Claudio, they could just add them all to the Blackpool Combat Club. Have them all just wear eye patches. Number 6, and I have to go back to number 6 because I got to get your reaction. I need to see your face for this one. Number 6 is Terry Funk.
Only
because he wore an eye patch in the middle of the match. Granted, it probably wasn't an eye patch; it was more of a bandage covering his eye. But regardless, because of the fact that Mick Foley almost ripped his eye out with some barbed wire, I'm giving him the 6th spot for eye patcher of the Millennium top 10 list. Rocky Romero is 5. Rocky Romero looks cool with an eye patch. I had to put him on there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. I'm like, Rocky Romero actually can rock an eye patch, and there's not many people can say that. Like I said, number 4 is Claudio Castagnoli Cesaro. Number 3 is somebody you did mention, Daniel Bryanson. Number 2, I hate that I have to put him on this list, but I have to put him on this list.
Okay.
Rey Mysterio. The fact that I had to subject myself once again to reliving the moment of that stupid eye for an eye match with the stupid fake eye that popped out of his head. And the fact that, for the love of God, only Rey Mysterio could sell that shit like Rey Mysterio can, where he actually had the eye patch built into his mask. I love Rey Mysterio. I will put him on any list that is on a positive note. I think of Rey Mysterio in the same light that I think of Jimmy Hart, by the way. I can't say a negative thing about either one of those two individuals. And Rey Mysterio was number 2. So if that's 2 through 10, Cousin Jay, would you like to take a guess who I think is the greatest eye patch wearing wrestler of all time?
I think I have to go with Pierre.
Pierre PCO. I freaking shut the thing. I'm such an idiot. How do I forget his name? Jean-Pierre Lafitte of the Quebecers, former WWE Tag Team Champions. Abso-freaking-lutely, because he wore an eye patch as a pirate in WWE, and he's kind of carried that over into now in 2024 as part of the Impact TNA thing. So he's number 1. And it's
I'm going with the hook style eye patch right now.
And the only reason that I have to give it to him is because he is from Quebec, just like my ancestors. So I have to give love to the people from the motherland of the Guy family.
Yes.
But yeah, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, PCO, whatever other names that he's had over the many decades that he's been in this business, is my number 1 patch-wearing professional wrestler.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that I could throw Rocky Romero in there and not be a negative thing because he has affiliations to AEW.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Some people look cool wearing a patch. He's one of them. I would look like a fool.
All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where would you like to go next, Cousin Jay? Would you like to talk about something that happened with a person losing their job, or do you want to talk about one of the many lawsuits that are happening in professional wrestling, and none of them are Vince McMahon with Janelle Grant?
Well, we could talk about people who are missing from the WWE roster page.
So this past Monday, a lot of speculation was going out because Odyssey Jones has been portrayed on television as a guy who's kind of brought in to replace Big E in the New Day. But obviously you get the rub from two of the absolute greats of the last 10, 15 years in the business. It's going to help build your character. Well, he just magically disappeared and was kind of written off with no reason or explanation behind it. And then we found out after Raw, I found out Tuesday morning, that Odyssey Jones was removed from the roster page with no explanation whatsoever. It has come to light that Odyssey Jones is allegations that he is a assaulter, domestic abuser. Yeah.
I know when I saw that, like quite literally, I spent 5 to 10 minutes last week going off about what happened to Nikki Bella. Like last week at this time, it wasn't clear exactly what happened. They just said that, hey, 911 was called and her husband got arrested. And it was clear that based off the arrest that somebody got injured in the house. And last week I was like going, look, we could speculate all we want. Clearly whatever happened in there wasn't good and that her husband needs help. Now there's been some clarity with that. And it just sad. And then literally a couple days later, we get this thing about Odyssey Jones. And it sounds like he was trying to hide this from the company, I think. But they found out and
it's crazy too, because there was an account on Twitter that was saying all these things. Like every time there was a post, any positive post about Odyssey Jones since he was starting to get showcased after getting drafted to Raw a couple years ago. Excuse me. And that they were saying that he is, he's an abuser. He's somebody who's a domestic abuser, and he does all this stuff, and he's a bad person and all this stuff. And it just seemed like it all came out on Tuesday. And it's just crazy that the dude just kind of, no, like, we wish you the best in your future endeavors. Nothing, just gone. You're working with one of the most decorated tag teams in WWE history. And then the next week, you're just off the face of the earth with no explanation. Yes, these are allegations, so we don't really know what's really happening. But as somebody who I am completely against domestic abuse, of all things, I could sit here. That is probably the one hill I will die on. I am not somebody who is a person who is in favor of domestic abuse. I am completely against it. I fucking hate people who do shit like that. I'm sorry. But you're not a real person if that's, you're not a good person. You're just a piece of shit if that's the shit you're going to do. I'm sorry. And once we get some clarity on this, yes. But as of right now, and we're at the point now that with the dirt sheets, we can't even really trust anything that they say anymore because they're putting out false shit all the time. So it's eventually something's going to come about this because it has to. Everything just eventually comes to light.
Right.
So I could sit here like you did last week and just go absolutely off on Odyssey Jones. But until I get some clarity of what had happened, I'm just going to, that's it. I just want to mention it. Just thought it was kind of peculiar that this dude was getting showcased the way he was, and it looked like they were doing something with Odyssey Jones, teasing an Xavier Woods heel turn, all this stuff, and then he's gone. The only, if there was a funny part to this, it was Xavier Woods coming out on Tuesday after he got released, and he said, "See? I told you all I was right. Just don't trust the guy."
There was that, and then I guess a little bit of the interplay with him and Kofi, where Kofi ended up, I think, wishing him a happy birthday, but it was like a day late. He's like, "Yeah, thanks so much, but my birthday was was yesterday or something along those lines. So I enjoyed that bit, but WWE, at least in the past, has been sometimes too lax. Like when somebody shows character issues, I mean, they let Velveteen Dream back after the allegations and just kind of, when they brought him back on TV, they just ended up burying him.
Didn't he work like one match on his return and the fans just absolutely eviscerated him when he was in the ring and they're like, yeah, we can't bring him back out here?
I think they gave him a couple matches, but for the most part, like they just didn't book him much and or booked him poorly. And I don't know if that was specifically them trying to avoid any sort of lawsuit by saying, well, you didn't have anything to prove these things you were saying, so how could you fire me? I'm going to guess that they knew but didn't have proof, but then finally had something to prove to them, or because he told them, no, this is not a thing, this didn't happen, and then it comes to light that, oh yes, this did happen, which would be very similar to what happened with Enzo Amore.
I was thinking the same thing.
Enzo said, yep, nothing to be concerned with, and then all of a sudden, allegations against Enzo, and he didn't tell the company. And Enzo, I think he had rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and because of that, the leash of what, let's wait till this plays out before we make a final decision. And I think he had ticked off so many people. They're like, yeah, no, you don't get another chance. You burned every bridge within the company. The only bridge that you had left was Triple H, and he wrote you off. So I'm wondering if there was something similar like that. And like you said, never ever condone somebody who does that crap.
Nope.
I mean, heck, I even still sometimes, to this day, think about Stone Cold.
Yep.
And I think he has remorse for what happened. And I have not heard the same issues with his current wife.
Yeah.
Which tells me he's done some changing. I have some grace for people who have made improvements.
I agree. And I think I'm in the same boat with you, because I feel the same way about Steve Austin, that it looks like it's just one of those things. It was just a bad situation that happened, and he is doing everything in his power to improve himself in his life to make sure something like that doesn't happen. So I applaud Steve Austin for something like that. Not what happened, but how he handled himself after the fact.
Yeah, not trying to run from it, not trying to hide.
Exactly. And again, he's never leaving my Rushmore. It's going to be a cold day in hell if you think you're going to get him out of my Rushmore. Not just any cold day in hell, a stone cold day in hell.
He would have to do what Chris Benoit did.
Which is funny, because Hulk Hogan got booted from my Rushmore, and he was numero uno for a long time. That was before I knew what a Rushmore was. I mean, I knew what a Rushmore was, but I didn't know you could actually do Rushmores outside of the 4 presidents that were on the freaking mountain in South Dakota.
Right.
But I again, this is one of those things I really do not condone this type of action. So again, we also need to get all the facts before we can sit here and eviscerate this dude on the show. Because I would definitely go the fuck off, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
And then the Hulkster opened his mouth. A lot of times when he says stuff, I can laugh. But what he said this week, no. No.
You know, it's funny. If there was one funny part about this, Jay, I knew we were going to talk about this. I didn't even have to write it in my notes because I knew I wasn't going to forget about it. Because I knew the second that I saw what he said, I said, oh, yeah. It's never very often where something happens and immediately I'm like, yeah, this is definitely getting brought up on the podcast. And for whatever reason, it's always Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair or Tony Khan. There's the same usual suspects. And we joke about this every single week where we're like, okay, are we going to talk about Hulk Hogan this week? Is Ric Flair going to say something stupid? Well, it's definitely Hulk Hogan. What did the Hulkster say?
Podcast this week. I am paraphrasing, but more or less, he said, people have forgiven Benoit for what the shit he did. You know, why can't I get forgiven? And one, not true. People may still respect the performer in the ring. They haven't forgiven him for what he did.
Not a fucking
Even
chance.
his best friends in the industry, Chavo Guerrero, Jericho, have not forgiven him for what he did. Like, they respect the performer. And the other problem for me with Hogan in general, since that tape came out, I don't think he's ever been super definitive about exactly what he said and what he's apologizing for. He tries to almost make it seem like I made a mistake, I apologize. What was the mistake you made? Like in his impulsive interview, he said, I've made huge mistakes.
Huge.
But he doesn't name them. So you're taking no true accountability because you're not naming the actual fault that you did. If you would name the fault you did and apologize, like legit get on your knees and apologize for the things you said or the things you did, I have an awful lot of grace for you. But when you go out there and kind of give a half-hearted apology, and even back when he came back into the WWE locker room after his 3 years of being kicked out of the company, it sounded like, well, you should, almost like he was saying, like, well, you know, you should accept me back because of what I've done for this industry. Not really giving an actual full-throated, full-hearted apology. Saying, I had a bad night, I was going through a divorce, my life was in ruins, and I was weak, and quite honestly, you probably shouldn't even say that. You should say, I have no excuses. I said something completely out of my character. I should never have said that. If it offended you, I am so sorry. Will you accept my apology? But no, he's trying to deflect the fact that he said some really shitty stuff and just has never really, at least openly, from what I can remember, really asked for a full, like, this is what I said. I'm sorry. It always feels like he like won't go all the way.
And the fact that he's trying to lump himself in with Chris Benoit is really not a good look either. And the best way to put it with Chris Benoit and the whole Hulk Hogan thing is exactly what Paul Heyman said to a fan years ago during a Q&A that they did with him. And they asked him about Chris Benoit. He said, the performer Chris Benoit, top 5 performer I've ever seen inside the ring, but fuck him as a human being. I cannot even watch Chris Benoit matches. I can't. I refuse.
I tried to a couple times.
If he's in a Royal Rumble or like a Money in the Bank, I really don't have much of a choice. I could just kind of like whatever. I could just look at my phone when it happens. But like I can't watch a one-on-one triple threat, any of that stuff. I refuse to watch the end of the WrestleMania where he won the world title and him and Eddie hugged each other at the end of it. And it's a shame too because that's such a great moment in wrestling history, and it's been tarnished by a freaking devilish human being who did some awful fucked up things. And it's like
she's getting mad too.
Yeah, see, and Sheba understands. See, we talked about Chris Benoit and we upset Sheba. I'm very sorry, Sheba. But like, I agree with you, Jay. He didn't even apologize for what he did. He just lumped himself in with Chris. Well, if they forgive, they still love Chris Benoit. Nobody loves Chris Benoit anymore. The only people that speak highly of him are the lunatics that have no idea because they're stupid. The people that are going to overlook the fact that he is a murderer and like, oh, well, he was a great performer. I don't fucking care. Superfly Jimmy Snuka was another great performer. I don't give a fuck about him anymore. He got away with murder. It took him until he was nearly on his deathbed in like his 70s for them to finally get a conviction on him. Because Vince McMahon bailed him out of that. Which, by the way, the new Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix is coming out in a couple of weeks. This is definitely going to be a situation where I just let all the episodes pile up and just binge watch the shit out of them. Because there's no way I'm not seeing this. There is no fucking way I'm not seeing this.
And we did mention it when it was announced that this was coming out, that Vince would be part of it. But this interview took place before all the allegations came out, before he became Boris, the dastardly owner of WWE. Yeah, so he hadn't messed his face up completely with the plastic surgery yet. He hadn't grown the mustache, and he hadn't used shoe polish yet to color his hair and his mustache.
They don't have the mustache in it, and I don't know if I want to watch it. I was only going to watch for the mustache.
All right, so what I could do for you possibly is on your TV, I could come and we'll make sure we got those, dry erase board markers. So we'll just squirt a little on the screen, and when he's off, it'll be good.
Who am I kidding? I'm going to watch this. I've never been more excited for a freaking documentary. And everybody's like, oh, I'm not really looking forward to this documentary. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But the only thing I'm looking forward to is when Dark Side of the Ring dedicates an entire season to him. Because it's going to happen. I'm sorry. You got way too much material on that piece of shit. And I cannot believe that here I am in 2024 calling a man who has brought me so much joy as a wrestling fan over the decades, not even just years, the decades. And I'm calling him a piece of shit. But honestly, it's rightfully so. If we're going to call Hulk Hogan a piece of shit for what he did, if we're going to call Chris Benoit a piece of shit for what he did, if we're going to call Superfly Jimmy Snuka a piece of shit for what he did, we have to call Vince McMahon a piece of shit for what he did.
Literally.
I'm sorry, but I'm you know me, I'm glued to shit like that. Oh, excuse me.
But that trailer that they put out, very interesting stuff. Certainly some stuff, just a couple of the things I saw, I'm like, I've never either seen that photo before or never seen this footage before. So clearly they had a lot of access to a lot of different things that we just haven't been able to put eyes on. But, come 2.5 weeks from now, it's going to be unearthed. And I love the name, McMahon, Mad Genius, and Maniac.
In about less than 48 hours, I'm sure I'm going to be crying in my living room.
And we'll get to wear our shirts again.
Yes. It's such good shit, pal.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm still going to rock that shirt. That's still one of my favorite shirts. Not even just of my wrestling shirts. That's one of my favorite shirts, period.
Well, the thing is it literally has Vince McMahon with devil horns on.
It is such good shit, pal. And now I say pal all the time. Thanks a lot, Vince McMahon. Actually, I blame John Moxley because he was the one that said in the Jericho interview on the Talk is Jericho podcast 5 years ago, and now I can't get pal out of my head. Damn it. Just like, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be a really good documentary. I'm curious to see if Bret Hart is a part of it, how badly he buries Vince McMahon in it.
Oh, he is a part of it. He was in the trailer.
Oh, he's definitely going to. I haven't seen the trailer. I'm sorry. I have not seen the trailer. I have not seen it come across my timeline or anything like that. I'll have to find it. I want to see it. I just hope Bret buries the shit out of him. And we're getting Bret Hart on the season premiere of Monday Night Raw on Monday. Yeah. I'm so excited. I am always happy to see the Hitman.
I hope that I know they wouldn't do this to him, but I almost want them to have Goldberg come out.
See, Sheba doesn't want Goldberg there either, Cousin Jay. And it's funny because there's a lot of people that were saying, yeah, I'd like to see WWE bring Goldberg into this as well. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see Goldberg there. Why are you going to piss off the Hitman? You're going to piss off one of the greats.
But Triple H won't do that. Vince McMahon would have done that.
We have a better – you know who we are going to see when they show Bret Hart on the TV is going to be Drew McIntyre. There's no way in hell that if they're bringing out Bret Hart in Calgary on Monday for Raw, that Drew McIntyre is not going to fuck with him. There's no way. And whatever medical facility that they sent CM Punk to on Monday, he's definitely going to break out of there and come into the building in an ambulance to beat the shit out of – yeah, with the Hitman shirt.
Jersey.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, if y'all thought that he was upset about a bracelet, you ain't seen nothing until he gets his hand on Drew. Drew tries to hurt the Hitman. Right. That'd be like if somebody went after shit. There's not really anybody in the Giants that I think of in the same light that CM Punk thinks of Bret the Hitman Hart.
Tim would like to see Salty Bret with a live mic, not like Bret Hart trying to put over the crowd in Calgary and have a good pop for himself. He wants Salty Bret. Bret would come out with Goldberg.
I'd like to see Bret Hart come out there with a live microphone and say "fuck Goldberg" at the end of it. I don't even care that they're not on Netflix, and I don't even care that they're going to try to keep it PG on Netflix, which is absolutely silly, Roman Reigns, to think that way.
Well, I just have to say and it's not going to happen because Bret, I think, signed a long-term Legends deal with WWE. We could have had that moment in AEW. Clearly, after they let Christian drop that on television, Tony Khan's ready, able, and willing to go there.
How would
WWE not so much.
How would I know that? I'm not one of the 840,000 people who watch The Big Bang Theory until 8 o'clock on Wednesdays and then see the ridiculous bullshit garbage crap that they have every single week on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock to 10. Which, by the way, was another thing since we were mentioning, stables and AEW. Did you know that they've taken Top Flight, Action Andretti, and a couple other guys or another guy with some woman I've never seen before because I have not watched AEW in over a year. They're dressing them all up as pilots.
Yes, they're called Top Flight. Yes. That was the main event of Rampage. When I went, it was Maximum Male Models versus Top Flight.
Just because the tag team is called Top Flight does not mean that if there was ever a WWE Vince McMahon mid-90s gimmick idea.
Or, hey, to be fair, Spirit Squad was mid-2000s. Not much different.
Jay, I'm talking about the days of the Repo Man, the Duke the Dumpster. By the way, you want to talk about another person that has completely dropped off the face of the earth for the brainless one? Duke the Dumpster Drosy. I've seen some shit about him now that I'm like, God damn. I'm like, I really wish I could go back to 2001 for WrestleMania 17 in my time machine and not just talk myself out of picking Duke Drosy to win that stupid battle royal. But the fact is, I would take myself out into the backyard and beat the shit out of myself. I'm sorry, I would. Just because of the fact that I picked Duke the Dumpster Drosy to win that fucking match. I would have beat myself up, went back in there, all bearded up, all 41 years of me, right back into the basement where I was watching WrestleMania 17, took my prediction sheet, crossed off Duke Drosy, and would have put Hillbilly Jim. I would have been wrong either way, but I would have at least felt better about
more
myself.
Respectable.
Yeah, because it's Hillbilly Jim and he's a goat.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. You take a tag team called Top Flight and turn them into pilots, and you give them a stewardess. Action Andretti looks like a 9-year-old kid about to go out trick-or-treating. Or it's his first time getting on a plane, and he loves planes and he wants to be a pilot. So they dressed him up as a pilot before they got him onto the plane. Exactly what he looks like. He looks like a 9-year-old child dressed up like a pilot. I saw the picture.
Do you like movies about gladiators?
You ever seen a grown man naked? You ever been inside a Turkish prison? Such a great, one of the best quotable movies, by the way. I don't care what anybody says.
That actually was Action Andretti when he was a kid. Or maybe last week.
Oh my God, Jay, I saw that. I was like, that's awful. This is awful. This is like Vince McMahon. Yeah, Vince McMahon. Oh, you're Top Flight, huh? Well, pals, you're about to be pilots. You can make the same case that Tony Khan is doing this same stupid shit that Vince McMahon was doing back in the R-Truth. Please do not fall. Let me get you off of there. I can't have you fall behind there.
You know what? Maybe that's because behind the scenes, maybe there is a McMahon booking.
Cousin Jay, whenever the next time they do All Out, All In, whatever the fuck they're doing for their next pay-per-view,
next week.
I really don't care when they're doing it. I could really give two shits, a rat's ass, or a flying fuck, anything that AEW does.
Because your favorite wrestler is wrestling for Daniel Bryanson's championship? Yeah?
You know, somebody, one of the AEW diehards out there pissed me off so much on Facebook that I told him that your parents are just like Luke Perry. They made a mistake by not wearing a rubber and conceiving you. Just like Luke Perry didn't wear a rubber and ended up conceiving fucking Jack Perry. I'm sorry, I can't treat these people with kid gloves anymore. They're incels. They're sickos. They're not right in the head. There's no reasoning these fucking people. Somebody hurt them at some point in their lives, and they're taking it out on WWE fans who have as much as a single freaking negative thought about anything that AEW does. It's not my fault or any WWE fan's fault that your booker is trying to be the hybrid of Herb Abrams and Vince McMahon. And I'm glad that we're onto this because I did mention that there were some lawsuits coming out. And there are 2 lawsuits that are coming out in professional wrestling this week. One is WWE Fanatics and Cody Rhodes are getting sued by, I think, a singer. I don't know if it's a wrestler like it was with the Yeet, but there is a singer or musician out there that is suing WWE and Cody Rhodes and Fanatics for the American Nightmare. I don't remember the dude's name, but he said that they're copying Reed. We had an agreement and all this stuff, and they broke the agreement that we agreed upon with them using American Nightmare. I just find it stupid that Cody Rhodes has been the American Nightmare for a hell of a lot longer than he was in WWE. He was the American Nightmare in Japan. He was the American Nightmare in AEW. I want to say he was the American Nightmare in Ring of Honor.
Basically, once he left WWE the first time, he was the American Nightmare.
So now you got a fucking problem with the fact that he's the American Nightmare and making money off of the name? Why? Because he's with WWE? Because he's got a deal with freaking Fanatics? You didn't want to go after him when he was working for AEW. The owner of AEW is the son of the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. You should have had just as much of a shit fit about that. This just seems like this dude's trying to get a cash grab, just like the dude for Yeet. And I really hope that they bury this dude because nobody gives a shit about him, whoever the fuck he is. He's so relevant, I don't even know what his name is, and I don't really care to find out. But I just find it comical that this dude's coming out with a lawsuit now because he's in WWE making a shit ton of money, top merch seller in WWE, and now you got a problem. Somebody should find this
top merch seller, to be fair, for like the last 2 years almost.
Well, I mean, there was a point where L.A. Knight, was the top seller too. But yeah, for the most part, it's been Cody Rhodes. He sells the most merch, and that's why he's the top star. So this is now the perfect time. Yeah, that makes sense. It'd be the perfect time to file a lawsuit. But there is another lawsuit that's coming out, and it's not on WWE. It's an AEW. AEW is getting sued by former WWE announcer, Ring of Honor announcer, New Japan Pro Wrestling announcer, Kevin Kelly, and the Tate twins, who were once upon a time known as the Boys. And they're taking Tony Khan to court for wrongful termination because the Boys were terminated because they said it was for budgetary cuts, and then Tony Khan came out and said they no-showed some shows, and they're like, oh, we got receipts for that saying that we didn't no-show. And Kevin Kelly got fired because he's blaming Ian Riccoboni for him saying that he's part of Canaan, whatever the fuck, QANON, whatever the hell it is. Clearly, I'm not a part of it because I can't even pronounce it, so I'm free and clear of that. So you don't have to worry about me being Quanin or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, QAnon is kind of known as like kind of right-wing conspiracy. When the folks stormed the Capitol in 2021, like the dude who wore like the buffalo hat, that dude was part of QAnon. Anyway.
But yes, there's that lawsuit going on with AEW. So I just think it's interesting that there's two different lawsuits that are coming out in the same week, and it affects both companies, especially with WWE still has the whole Janelle Grant kind of hovering over their head. So thoughts on the lawsuits, Cousin Jay?
Well, I think the Cody one is just ridiculous. If you had a problem with it, you had a problem with it a while ago. I'm going to guess this is not similar. Like, hey, when the World Wildlife Fund first existed, they existed before WWE, but they were a pretty well-known entity. And they told WWE, it's okay if you utilize WWF, but you cannot do this, 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 or this. WWF ended up violating that several times.
Shocked.
And then finally, World Wildlife Fund said, you cannot be WWF anymore. If there was a similar agreement with Cody Rhodes, like, hey, we had this first. You could use it, but you can't do this, 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 and this. The thing for this is nobody knew this other entity beforehand. Right. If you have anybody searching out for American Nightmare, your name is not going to come up. Cody Rhodes' name is going to come up. So if anything, you're getting a rub because Cody Rhodes uses that name. So people search American Nightmare, your name might come up. I'm with you though. It feels like a cash grab and something that this person's going to lose.
Yeah. Well, we know how WWE is going to handle it. It's just because we know the TKO and that whole group with the UFC merger and everything, they're not going to want this to kind of hover around. They're going to go out and offer this dude a substantial amount of money to shut the fuck up and get him to stop complaining and drop this lawsuit. Because that's what WWE does. And that's that's exactly what he wants. He wants to get paid. And if anybody out there, any of the followers, any of the listeners of the podcast, if you could actually find the dude's name, not like I really give a shit because I'm going to forget 10 minutes after you tell me anyway. I'll probably forget 10 seconds after you tell me because I'm pulling names. But it definitely seems like this dude's just in it for the cash grab. Take your 15 seconds of fame. Nobody gives a fuck that you're the American Nightmare, whoever the fuck you are, or whatever your association with the American Nightmare is, and go fucking pound sand, pal. I know for a fact that this AEW lawsuit's going to get real ugly. Because they want to be deemed as employees, and AEW wants to treat them as contractors.
AEW wanted to be in an alternative. At the beginning, I remember Chris Jericho said, no, I'm an employee of AEW. And I think that's still true for a handful of them. Like the Bucks and Kenny, because they have positions within the office. And I think Daniel Bryanson, I think, has something like that too, because he does stuff outside of the ring, outside of. But, they wanted to be an alternative. Tony Khan, for a long time, said, I'm not going to be cutting people from my roster. If I sign them to a contract, they're going to be here to the end of the contract. He did that up until about a year and a half ago. Then he started cutting people. And, oh, yes, I'm going to make sure that, my wrestlers are taken care of. Any medical expenses. And I think I remember at least one of the people that's an employee said, oh, yeah, I've got health insurance. And that would be a big thing. But if, they're not any different than what WWE's doing, then,
right.
What would draw you there beyond okay, pays me well and I have a lighter schedule? I mean, I guess those are differences. But, I mean, you could end up like Rusev. Think you're going to, hey, you know what? I got to this level of fame in WWE. If they really give me a full-throated shot, I'm going to be a big star. And they botched the hell out of that.
Rusev showed up at WrestleMania to fight John Cena in a tank, people. It was in We Didn't Start the Mania, the Brainless song that I came out with a couple years ago. He came out in a tank, which was one of the coolest things I've ever seen at WrestleMania ever. Awesome. Loved it. And look at when was the last time we've seen Miro? He had a throwaway match a year and a half ago. We haven't seen him. He's had 3 or 4 matches in the last 3 or 4 years.
And I know he had a shoulder injury, and once he and Lana broke up, he went back to Bulgaria. But, the move to AEW, again, it's it seemed like, hey, this is going to be the land of opportunity. I'm going to be able to be creative, do my thing, and it doesn't seem quite that way anymore.
I just want to see if Ricochet feels the same exact way he does or he did up until about a week ago after he has his stupid match with Will Ospreay where freaking Dave Meltzer's dick explodes because he doesn't know how many stars to give it. And then to see what his booking looks like after he loses to Ospreay, because he's going to lose to Ospreay.
I love that Will Ospreay came out in the last week or two. I think it was before All In, and said, I am not better than Kurt Angle. I am not better than Shawn Michaels. Clearly, whatever Dave Meltzer is watching, he has an affinity for my style. But I am not better than these people who have not gotten matches that have had as many stars as I do.
Kenny Omega said the same thing about Kurt Angle. He said, I know I'm good. He goes, but I'm not as good as Kurt Angle. He goes, that dude was on another level. They all respect him. That's another reason why I have no issue with Kenny anymore. Is that Kenny is probably, of the 3 fucknuts from the Elite, he's the only one that has any kind of a brain. I'm not saying this is a way that to say, all right, I can overlook the way he. No, I'm not going to ever say that I overlook the way he wrestles and all that stuff. I'm just telling you, as a human being, I don't hate Kenny Omega anymore. I have a slight respect for him, and he's an animal lover, so I got to give him kudos for that too. The Young Bucks are the only reason the Young Bucks are even animal lovers is when they fuck each other. That's when they love animals.
All right, Chris Brown's saying Wesley Isold is the singer's name for American Nightmare.
Why does that name sound familiar?
I don't know. We could figure it out after.
Oh, this is just like that happened with the rapper. I think it was the rapper. I think who passed away last week. He was at a show in Connecticut, and they were like, it was DJ something passed away from a medical emergency. I was like, who the hell is this guy? And then they're like, oh, it's if you got a $50 bill, put your hands up. You got a $20 bill, put your hands up. And I was like, oh my God, I know who that is. That's awful.
That guy.
Y'all, they got to stop sending famous people to the state of Connecticut. I'm sorry. Something bad happens. Just ask Milli Vanilli. Just ask Dave Chappelle. Just ask Tennille Dashwood. Why, if you're a famous person, you don't go to the state of Connecticut?
Yeah.
And it's horrible. I bet you any money this dude's gonna have like one song that I probably heard like once in like the last 7 years. I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually not a terrible song. I still don't give a fuck about him. This is definitely a cash grab. Fuck him.
Oh, and I know we got off Hulk Hogan, but he did also mention in his interview that he recently signed a 5-year deal, Legends deal, with WWE. And that includes like that they could sell his merch and what have you. So Hulkster's still going to be out there.
And it's funny too because people are like, why did they re-sign him to a new 5-year contract? Are you nuts? The man still sells freaking merchandise. WWE can make money off of Hulk Hogan. That's why WWE keeps all their legends around so they can keep making money off of them, and the legends can make money off of it too.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. Maybe if some of these wrestlers in AEW, the Bucks, Jungle Boy, Hangnail Page, maybe if they actually respected some of these legends, Bret Hart would be in AEW right now. That's all I'm going to say.
Glock Anderson would still be there.
I still pop from when he was at SummerSlam. I love seeing him out there for that.
Yeah. So yeah, Hulkster another 5 years, and
my favorite one in that interview. I'm sorry, I had to mention this was when he was talking about a shoot and
in a work,
and he goes, "Well, this right here, brother, is a work." He goes, and if it doesn't, get better, it's going to be a shoot. And Logan Paul, I'm convinced that Logan Paul was just saying it just to fuck with him. But I also think it'd be kind of embarrassing if Logan Paul didn't know the difference between a shoot and a work. He doesn't look like he's intelligent enough. And I really, we were talking about scumbags earlier. Logan Paul's on that fucking list. So the fact that him and Hulk Hogan were in a podcast together was kind of fitting.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny because the look on Hogan's face when Logan Paul's like, I don't know what a shoot is.
And then Hogan, didn't he like look dead in the camera? He's like,
I took the picture and I have it on my phone. It's going to be my new favorite. It's probably going to, there's a good chance it's going to be my freaking, my Twitter picture.
All right.
And speaking of my Twitter bio, I'm sorry I missed last week's show with Psycho Sid passing away. I definitely would have given my condolences to him. I was very sad to see Psycho Sid pass away. It's unfortunate. A man who's given us so many great memories. And because of his passing, the Brainless One will tell you this. My location on Twitter has been and will forever be wherever he damn well pleases. In honor of Psycho Sid Justice Vicious.
And nobody ever said wherever he damn well pleases better than Gary Michael Campetta.
Nobody says anything better than Gary Michael Campetta says it. Nobody calls Sting to the ring better than Gary Michael Campetta. He was literally the highlight of Clash 13, Cousin Jay. Well, him and Ric Flair and Butch Reed, obviously, and the Z-Man.
And cocaine for Michael Hayes.
I cannot believe. Again, the one thing that upsets me the most about Clash 13 isn't primetime Brian Lee leaving the Z-Man hanging. It isn't watching the Motor City Machine or the Motor City Madman just absolutely embarrass the wrestling business. The most egregious and the thing that upsets me the most about Clash 13 is the fact that beautiful Bobby Eaton was not given a chance to wrestle because Michael Hayes and that freaking Jimmy Jam Garvin doofus got El Gigante arrested or captured by whoever it was that they did. I forget exactly how they got rid of.
I think they got like ICE or somebody to.
Yeah, that's what it was. I think they got him or they tried to get him deported. I was like, could you imagine? Seriously, think about this. Imagine being in like ICE or the FBI, and you're hearing about you guys got to get this 7'7" giant from Brazil out of this country, and it's Michael Hayes coked out of his mind. That's going to be a future top 10 list. Top 10 wrestlers who did coke in wrestling. Just because it just gives me a chance to give Michael P.S. Hayes a number one spot for something. Because I don't think anybody is. I think the only person who might have done more coke than Michael P.S. Hayes is you pick a name from Motley Crue. I would say Ozzy Osbourne, but Ozzy Osbourne was probably on more drugs that people don't even know existed. Motherfucker drank piss on a freaking pool on the floor of a pool area. Ozzy's something else. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kudos last year for All In being a big success, selling, well over 70,000 tickets. But apparently this year, not everybody was all in. The attendance went down by over 33%. I think it was 36%. They still had a sizable crowd. Like, I think it was 46,476 went through the turnstiles. That is still a large crowd, but a 36% drop off. Like,
mud. They're in the mud.
So hopefully, them. And the thing is, I think it's difficult trying to sell out a stadium show in the same exact stadium year after year. You have to go to different places. It makes sense for them to go elsewhere. WWE generally does not do WrestleMania at the same place back to back, except for Trump, WrestleMania 4 and 5. But that wasn't a stadium. That was a casino.
And they've done it where they've actually brought it back to the location, year after year. I still think that they should have WrestleMania 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. all the way. It should all be at Madison Square Garden. I don't care what anybody says. That is the mecca of sports center of just sports. It's the Madison Square Garden. That's how it should have been. But they've done it at the Meadowlands a couple times. They've done it in Los Angeles a couple of times. They're doing it in Vegas last year, and Las Vegas was the home of the greatest WrestleMania of them all, WrestleMania 9.
They did it at the MetLife Center, brother.
And think about this. They did 2 Clash at the Castles, and neither one of them were at the same location.
So, hey, if they go back to London in a couple of years, great. And beyond that, hey, let's work on some storylines. I thought the Swerve and Daniel Bryanson one was done well. What they've continued to do with Swerve, I'm enjoying, because I'll go and watch the highlights of things going on that seem interesting. The fact that we had Hangman Page just hanging out in front of Swerve's house after he lit it on fire. It was not quite to the level of, Randy Orton doing the Randy Orton pose after he burned down the house of Sister Abigail, but
I can't take Hangman Page seriously as a heel because he has butterflies on his pants. That's not very nefarious.
That's
I'm
true.
sorry. And it's nothing personal. It's just that if you're going to be a heel, you shouldn't have butterflies on your pants, unless you're Bailey. And even Bailey would get rid of the butterflies on her pants. Let's be serious for 2 seconds.
With a couple of buddies. Nobody ever said with a couple of buddies better than
Gary Michael Capetta. I'm convinced that he would introduce us better than I've ever introduced us or you've ever introduced us on this podcast.
I wonder if he's ever introduced Bobby Fish to the ring.
It's very possible because Bobby Fish has been wrestling forever.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Abraham Lincoln.
Well,
and if I could ever...
fair, his first match was like with like his brothers Cain and Abel.
All I'm going to say is it's going to be a very, very long day and a very, very filled to the brim Facebook page if I ever figure out how to get a freaking AI thing so I can actually have Abraham Lincoln and Bobby Fish in the ring together. Although I'm already expecting that because I've tried it a couple of times and the fact is it ended up being Abraham Lincoln wrestling a fish. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. I'm like, how do I do this to get Bobby Fish and Abraham Lincoln in the ring? I almost said The Undertaker.
One day.
But one day. It's going to happen. And when it happens, it's going to be the most glorious thing of ever. It's funny. Now I hear my dog outside of the room, and she's looking for me because it's time for her to get whipped cream.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess that means we need to start moving it along.
That's fine. The dog doesn't need the whipped cream. She's fat now. Oh, she might have heard that. I'm probably in trouble now.
She's fat.
She's gonna pee on my pillow. It's fine. But honestly, like I have a couple more notes, really.
All right.
I really wanted to touch base with. The one thing I really wanted to talk about was Joe Tessitore. Former ESPN personality. I don't know if he's still an ESPN personality.
No, he's still an ESPN personality.
Well, ESPN personality Joe Tessitore made his WWE debut this week on Monday Night Raw. Now, granted, Jimmy Smith, Adnan Virk, Kevin Patrick really set the bar so freaking low. Even Mike Adamle, if we could lump him in there. But I thought for Joe Tessitore coming in on his first night, handled himself very well. I'm not saying that it was a perfect performance and I'm like, oh my God, Joe Tessitore is phenomenal at this. I thought he handled himself very well. He did better than Adnan Virk, Jimmy Smith, all of those guys in their first nights on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, whatever the show they did. And I really do think that because he's been doing this for as long as he has, once he gets comfortable, he's going to get a lot better. And putting him with, and I'll tell you right now, Wade Barrett really did an excellent job. Wade Barrett is fantastic. I love having Wade Barrett on commentary. Even with like the Wade Barrett trying to get Drew McIntyre to stop beating up CM Punk and beating the shit out of him like he did, and he wasn't listening. Wade Barrett was the perfect person to put with Joe Tessitore, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Wade Barrett is a very good storyteller as a color commentator. He will add in little extra tidbits that you won't necessarily get from other folks. Like, he is... He's completely different, but he is a good a vastly improved version of Matt Stryker. Matt Stryker would add in interesting little tidbits during the matches, but like after a while, it got a little bit wearing on you because it was almost like he was trying to showcase he knew more than you,
right?
Instead of just like adding an interesting tidbit to help enhance the match.
So what you're saying is Wade Barrett is the closest we've gotten to Jesse Ventura.
I think so.
And Jesse Ventura is one of the greatest to ever do it. I know I sit here and I talk about Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. Let's be real. Jesse Ventura with Gorilla Monsoon was just as good of a commentary team. Jesse was very good at what he did too. Wade Barrett kind of reminds me of like a not as you're not going to surpass the body. I'm sorry. The guy was fantastic as a color analyst. I think Wade Barrett is getting to that point where he's the best color man in WWE. And I know that his competition is basically Booker T and Corey Graves, and I like Corey Graves. I'm probably one of the few people out there that actually does like Corey Graves as an announcer.
I like Corey. I think that in the past 6 months they were giving him a test run to see if he could be lead, and he was fine, but he works much better having that slight heelish persona and having those witty comebacks.
He'll do good with Michael Cole until Pat McAfee comes back from College Football Game Day. And I'll tell you, Michael Cole does not get the flowers that he deserves. He deserves his flowers for what he is, considering how long he's been there. He outlasted Kevin Kelly, Todd Pettingale. He outlasted the King. He outlasted JR. He's been there for almost 30 years, if not more than, or at 30 years at this point. And it's funny, too, because I used to hate Michael Cole when he first started in WWE. I said, how is this dorky doofus going to be? And this is me, a teenager, saying this shit about Michael Cole. And Michael Cole is not
in 97 or 98. So it's 26, 27 years. That's a long time. JR, I think, was in WWE for 21 or 22. So longer than JR, longer than anybody.
Nobody.
And I bet he probably had to get a hearing aid because of how many times he got yelled at over the years.
There's not a human being on planet Earth that benefited more from Vince McMahon getting fired than Michael Cole. Because ever since, or Gunther.
Yeah.
But Michael Cole not having Vince McMahon constantly just hammer him on the microphone in his headset every single week has been great. He really benefited from the Triple H regime so he could just be himself and do what he has to do. But again, I enjoyed Joe Tessitore. Give him a little bit of time. We're not going to be having the same conversation about Joe Tessitore that we had about Jimmy Smith, Adnan Virk, or the Panther. Clothesline off the ropes. Back body drop. Tope suicida. No.
The one thing I keep on thinking to myself, why does WWE keep on trying this stuff? Where they hire somebody who already has another full-time gig. Whenever they come in, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, a lot of times, Adnan Virk got burnt out in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and was gone. That is a tough gig. If you're doing a full-time job and then you got to fly out and do commentary, and then you got to fly back to do your thing. I applaud Pat McAfee for trying to do this. He's home most of the week, but that's an awful lot to have a full-time gig and a couple days a week being on a plane. And for somebody like Joe Tessitore, when he was doing boxing, when he was doing other things, he at least did some traveling, so maybe, just maybe, he'll be able to deal with the rigors of the travel.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see. I just think that when you're hiring people from outside of the wrestling industry who already have a full-time job, I don't think their shelf life is long.
I think he'll be fine because they're going to treat it, because I'm sure he's done UFC as well. And maybe this is another thing they could do. Maybe they're bringing in Joe Tessitore to possibly do play-by-play for UFC down the line. I think this will be different. And I'm just trying to be optimistic because it just seems like it's been a revolving door over the last few years. Because it's been Tessitore.
You expect Joe Tessitore to be there 5 years from now?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I would like to believe that. I mean, this could be in the cards where, like, hey, he could be our replacement for Michael Cole. But I mean, I remember watching Joe Tessitore on WFSB growing up. So I mean, he's not a spring chicken, but he's not as old. I don't think he's any. I would say at least he's a few years younger than Michael Cole. Do they think that he could be Cole's replacement when Cole decides to step back a little bit in a few years?
No, I think that Vic Joseph will eventually become the new voice of WWE. I'm really am surprised that he hasn't gotten that spot yet. Maybe they just really like.
But that was with Vince.
I think that they really just like him down in NXT, and I'll tell you right now, Shawn Michaels has a lot of pull. Shawn Michaels is going to bring in the guys he wants, and Shawn Michaels is absolutely killing it. NXT is the best of all of the wrestling out there. NXT is the best every single week. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason why Vic Joseph hasn't gotten the chance, but Vic Joseph deserves another chance at the head desk of either Raw or SmackDown at some point. And as somebody who, like you said, we grew up with Joe Tessitore because he worked at WFSB. So we're used to having Joe Tessitore around. And he was also in ESPN. So we got very acquainted with Joe Tessitore. As somebody who has been following him for a very long time, I really think that he is a slam dunk hire for them. And I'm excited to see how he handles it, especially because he's a wrestling fan. I know that Adnan Virk was also a wrestling fan, but Adnan Virk just did not fit into as a commentator. He just didn't seem like it really it didn't just stick with him for whatever reason. And Jimmy Smith was basically the commentary equivalent of a wet paper bag each and every week on Raw. I'm sorry. He was awful. He was just, and it wasn't even like he did bad. It's just that.
No, he was vanilla.
He was just bland.
Yeah, there was nothing interesting about him.
When you get into this wrestling industry, you want to be remembered for something. Whether it's you want to be remembered for twisting a freaking frying pan with your bare hands, or
not taking a body.
Yeah, or pouring, getting into a fight in a supermarket and having, pouring milk, or the milk truck, or the beer truck, or the Zamboni, or the bedpan to the skull, or watching somebody fly through the pane glass window in the barber shop. Same thing goes for announcers. Michael Cole gave us one of the greatest things that not a lot of people appreciate, and that was the coal mine.
Yes.
Jim Ross has had some of the most iconic calls in wrestling. By God, he's broken in half. Vince McMahon, the same thing. That's gotta be Kane. Gorilla Monsoon, there's words that I haven't heard a commentator say in decades because Gorilla Monsoon was the last one to say it. That's something that Jimmy Smith never brought to the table. He has never done anything that has stood out for me as an announcer here when he was with WWE. The only reason that Kevin Patrick keeps getting remembered is because of the fact that all he did was pant. Flying body. Another elimination in the Rumble. Here comes Braun Strowman. I've never been happier to see somebody lose their job, and that's only because the Young Bucks haven't lost their job in AEW yet. But I do think I have faith that Joe Tessitore is going to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, my question isn't whether or not he's going to be good or succeed. It's like, will he be there long term, or is this like some sort of stopgap thing?
I can see him being there for like at least 2 or 3 years. 5 years, I wouldn't put it past him if he's actually good enough to do it. And like I said, I think it's just going to come with time. You're just going to have to pick up on it eventually. You're going to get it. It took me a minute to learn the Hartford route when I was doing deliveries in FedEx, but I got there. So it just takes time. It takes repetitiveness. It takes practice.
I have no questions about whether he could do the job. Will he stay there? Because I like to see people stay there.
I just think we got spoiled with Jim Ross and Michael Cole for a long time. And Gorilla Monsoon, obviously. We'll see. Only time will tell, Cousin Jay. That's all I can really say. I'd like to see him stick around long term, but only time will tell.
Yeah.
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 And really, the only other note I have is it was confirmed this week that Charlotte Flair and Jimmy Uso have both been medically cleared to return, and we will be seeing them both on SmackDown in the foreseeable future. Cousin Jay, my question to you, I have two questions for you for this. Number one, when do we see Jimmy Uso come back and get involved in this bloodline storyline?
I think it would make most sense at Bad Blood.
Okay.
We don't even know what matches officially are going to be at Bad Blood. I mean, it seems pretty clear that we're going to get Drew versus CM Punk in a match. But I think Bad Blood makes an awful lot of sense for setting up something for War Games.
We're going to get CM Punk and Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell, and I am all for it. Give me what I want. Like Batista said to Triple H for their match at WrestleMania. Give me what I want. I want it. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. That's what I want. I want Punk and Drew in Hell in a Cell. I agree with you. I do think if he doesn't come back as the premiere of SmackDown next week when they're on their first show on USA Network, I really do think it's going to be Bad Blood. My other idea would be next week on SmackDown because everybody's expecting Roman to come out and get involved in the Solo Cody Rhodes situation if they have the match next week.
Yeah, they're supposed to have a match next week.
So I could see Jim Uso coming back for that. My second question to you is this, Cousin Jay. With Charlotte Flair now medically cleared and en route back to SmackDown, how long until she wins another championship? Just say Bad Blood. Get it out of the way.
This may shock you a little bit. I don't think it's going to be until next year. I think she may be in the title match, but maybe it ends up being. Maybe she wins it at the Women's Rumble. Maybe she wins it at WrestleMania.
I hope that when she comes back, that they build for her and Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania, because I think that match would be absolutely bonkers. Because Tiffany Stratton is definitely one of the young, up-and-coming stars that they have in the women's division. They got a lot of them. It's only going to be a matter of time before Roxanne Perez is on the main roster, too.
And they could have Tiffy get the title by cashing in at some point between now and whenever and set up your match with Charlotte.
I am all for it. I'm excited for that. I think that Charlotte Flair wins it on her first main pay-per-view back.
Chris Brown is saying he believes Survivor Series.
Okay, I could see that too. It's going to happen. They love Charlotte. If you all thought Vince McMahon loved Charlotte, wait till you see Triple H when he has Charlotte.
Actually, Chris Brown said at Bad Blood, but no later than Survivor Series.
See? I said Bad Blood. I said just get it out of the way. Just say Bad Blood. She'll come back tonight or next week, and she'll be like, I'm challenging you, Nia Jax. And then it's going to be one of those things like, who do I want to have win the title? Nia Jax keep it or Charlotte win it? That's like, honestly, that would be for me. If the Cowboys and the Eagles were playing in the NFC Championship game and I had to pick one of those two teams to root for it in the Super Bowl. And honestly, if it was ever the Eagles and the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, I'd probably just climb to my roof and jump. And then climb back up there and jump as many times as I can until I finally perish. Because the last thing I'm going to want to see is either one of those fucking teams in the Super Bowl. And if they're playing against each other and I have no choice, no. I'm praying for a fucking...
Can we get serious for 2 seconds?
The Dallas Cowboys are never playing in those. Yes, I know.
Right. I know you've seen the memes going around about this will be the Cowboys fans like week 13 or whatever.
Cousin Jay, my two favorite jokes about the Dallas Cowboys are, what do Cowboy fans do after their team wins after they watch the team win the Super Bowl? They either turn off their PlayStation or they hit rewind on their VCR.
Yeah.
I got into it with a Cowboys fan too, which is kind of funny. I had to block him because he was trying to tell me that it was better that the Cowboys have beaten the Giants more recently in the regular season than it has been for the Cowboys to have not won a Super Bowl in probably this dude's lifetime. But he's just as fucking delusional as the freaking AEW fan, so I had to block him. I've gotten a lot of. I'll tell you right now, my index finger might be the most powerful thing on me because I've been blocking a lot of people. I've blocked over 190 people on Twitter.
You are almost, you're not quite Kevin Owens level, but.
I'm not even my father's level. El Diablo Blanco has apparently blocked more people than I have. I don't even know how that's possible. How the Andy Dufresne of Facebook can actually have more blocks than I do, but here we are.
Yep. All right.
Do you have anything else, Cousin Jay?
I mean, this isn't the biggest thing, but one Adam Edge is training for a return to the ring. It's rumored that he will not be officially cleared until maybe November, but he is at least healthy enough to start in-ring training, and he's training with FTR, Darby Allin, and Steve Borden Jr. And he looks a lot like his dad.
That's basically being Steve Borden Jr. has got to be like being Ted DiBiase Jr. or Michael Jordan's kids. You're not going to live up to the expectations of that man. I'm sorry. You're talking about one of the most iconic figures in the. It's this is Sting. Greatest WCW wrestler in my book, and it's not even close. He's a GOAT. Not to say that his son doesn't have the capability of being a really good star. You're not going to be Sting. I'm sorry. Sting is Sting.
No truer words have ever been spoken.
And it's funny, too, because I like the fact that Edge is actually training with people that I actually like, too, because I actually like Darby Allin. FTR is a great tag team. Dax Hardwood can just, he can, shut the fuck up just a little bit more than he does. Because I'm just sick and tired of listening to him whine. And every time he gets a microphone at AEW, when I see the clips of it, I'm like, ugh. Oh, this ought to be good. He's going to stroke freaking Tony Khan in the ring. Can't wait. This lackluster performance in that triple threat match.
Yeah, well, I think that's about all I got.
One little thing, because I know we were talking about Maple Leaf Championship Wrestling, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we know that Scott D'Amore is restarting Maple Leaf Championship Wrestling. We know that Mauro Ranallo is going to be the play-by-play guy. Did you hear? Yeah. And did you hear who's going to be doing commentary with Mauro Ranallo?
No.
It is going to be, oh my God, I just had a brain fart. Don Callis.
Nice.
Don Callis was working when he was the network executive for ECW. He was working as the color commentary, or he was the color commentator with Joey Styles. And they actually worked very well together. And if Don Callis is a part of it, I'm definitely tuning in. I was going to tune in anyway, just because, I'm curious. I want to see how it's going to be.
Right.
And I'd like to see some WWE guys like, All Eagle, Ethan Page there. But I thought that Don Callis going there and teaming up with Mauro Ranallo was a great call. So I just remembered about that. So I'm glad that it's going to be the two of them for Maple Leaf Championship Wrestling. And I really do hope for the success of it for Scott D'Amore.
Yeah.
Got a raw deal in TNA Impact.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all my notes.
All right.
So I guess it means it's time for our good,
our bad, and our
brainless. All right, Cousin Jay, what do you got for your good this week?
I have to give my good to one Rhea Ripley. There was a fan in the audience at one of the shows, and she had a sign that said, "I just kicked cancer's ass so I could see Rhea Ripley." And Rhea saw the sign and ended up bringing her back, signing the sign, and having a really cool experience with the fan. You don't need to do that. She did. Quite honestly, I think she is taking a few notes from one Cody Rhodes, who keeps on doing things of this nature to not go about it in exactly the way everybody else did, but like do things that will make the fans attach to you even more. It's like she didn't have to do it, but she did.
Right.
So Rhea Ripley, you get my good this week.
I thought you were going to say she got your good because she wrapped her legs around Dom Mysterio's head again and ate chicken tenders with ranch sauce after they beat them. There we go. The fireworks are going off.
I'm hoping to get the fireworks.
Hey, just be careful with those fireworks. We don't need you blowing off any fingers.
Yeah.
Now, I have one question before I get to my good.
Yeah.
When she saw the sign, did it open up her eyes?
Yes.
Okay. I had to hang on to that because that thought crossed my head, and I said, I know I'm going to lose it. So I just lassoed it and just kind of brought it in to make sure I didn't lose it.
Yes.
That's a hell of a good, though. And I can't say enough good things about her. She's their biggest star in the women's division, and you can't even tell me. You can't argue with me. Rhea Ripley is now the face of the women's division in WWE. So I'm glad you gave it to her. For me, it's to the girl, and I'm sorry that I didn't get her name. I was actually trying to search for it for about a good 20 minutes, trying to find it anywhere I could. But the girl who gave the bracelet to CM Punk gets my good for this week.
Okay.
The fact that the whole bracelet has been part of this whole storyline to kind of lengthen it out, and the fact that the bracelet has been more over in WWE than half of the championships that they have in AEW has been great. They broke the bracelet on Monday. She was very devastated. Luckily, CM Punk came out on Instagram and said that it was a fake bracelet. I finally have the one back, which means they didn't even use it at all during the storyline, because I'm glad that they did that. Drew said to her, she came out and said, 12-year-old me and 24-year-old me are two of the happiest people in the world because I was actually able to do something nice for CM Punk and all this stuff, and I'm glad that my bracelet got the exposure that it got. Drew McIntyre went out and tweeted at her and said, his blood is going to be on your hands. And she responded, and I quote, 5 minutes, 46 seconds. Which is how long Drew McIntyre's most recent reign as World Heavyweight Champion lasted before CM Punk pulled the rug out from beneath him and Damian Priest became our World Heavyweight Champion. The fact that she absolutely buried Drew McIntyre with that tweet, I just loved it. So she gets my good for this week.
Okay.
What do you got for your bad?
There was a lot of bad things and brainless things that went on this week. There was really this was a tough battle, but I've got to go with the Hulkster. Foot and mouth, saying really stupid shit. Still not really apologizing, kind of apologizing, but not clearly stating it. Not just saying, yeah, I had made some huge mistakes. Say the damn thing you did and apologize for them. Don't, I made a huge mistake. Say what you did, really apologize, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
So, Hulk Hogan gets my bad for this week.
Wow, I'm not even going to mention Hulk Hogan in my bad or brainless. And I thought you and I were going to agree on the bad because I'm going with Odyssey Jones. I'm sorry. If anything, you should have learned something from Enzo Amore. When there is some kind of allegations out against you, it's better to just come out and be open about what is being said about you and what is being alleged of you than it is for you to just kind of hide it and see if it just kind of goes away. If this is what has happened, then I'm sorry you had to go. But sometimes it's just better to be forthcoming than it is for you to just kind of hide shit from your employer, especially when it's a company like WWE that has shareholders and there's a big, it's worth a lot of money and all this stuff. So I'm sorry, Odyssey Jones, you get my bad for this week.
All right.
What is your brainless?
Odyssey Jones. I'm sorry. Not only did you fail to inform the place that paid you money, because technically he's an independent contractor, not a WWE employee.
Yes.
Not only did he do that, but if the allegations are true, and again, I don't think somebody would put something out like that. There would not have been these murmurs and rumors for years about Odyssey Jones out there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Dude, get your crap straight. Have a literal come to Jesus moment. Apologize and repent for what you did. Repent for what you did. But until then, you're just a piece of garbage who seems likes to beat up women.
Yeah.
Get your shit together, man. Treat people better. Odyssey Jones, you get my brainless.
And that is why you got my bad for this week, Odyssey Jones, because somebody else, in my mind, deserved my brainless more. And I know Cousin Jay is going to be absolutely surprised, just like all the people who tune into this podcast each and every week. You're all going to be surprised. For a third consecutive week, technically, although they got more of it the last episode, my brainless goes to none other than the head writer for the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer. And I'm going to tell you why. I could have went with Hulk Hogan because he's an idiot and said the things that he said. Not only just because of the fact that he didn't apologize for his wrongdoings all those years ago, but the fact is that he was saying that Chris Benoit would get, is welcomed back with open arms from wrestling fans. Get the fuck out of here. They came out yesterday with the ratings for AEW Dynamite, and Meltzer mentioned it. Yeah, they did 600. I think it was 660,000. The news was on, and so was the U.S. Open tennis. This man is now blaming AEW's ratings on the news and on tennis. And WWE has been going up against Monday Night Football for 3 decades now, over 3 decades. You never heard a peep out of them, and people are like, the ratings are going to go down with Monday Night Football. Tennis? I dare any of these AEW fans out there to name me 5 fucking tennis players. Because I can't even do it anymore. Because Andre Agassi doesn't play tennis anymore. He might leave, casually, but he doesn't play, in the tennis, whatever the hell the tennis thing is.
U.S. Open, yeah.
So I'm sorry, Meltzer. You got to get my brainless for this week. Because if you're going to tell me that something that is on every single day, on almost every single channel, at different times during the day, is affecting what is happening to the ratings in AEW, and then you're lumping in freaking tennis? Meltzer, just admit that you're a fucking mark for AEW, or that Tony Khan has you in their back pocket, or you've seen the Young Bucks and Kenny naked. That's all I need to know, and I will stop crucifying you and criticizing you every single week. But until that day, Dave Meltzer, you get my brainless.
All right.
So, if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on the Twitter X, follow us on the Gram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the FM marks. If you like, follow and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra. And make sure you set up notifications so that when we go live, you will be notified that we are live so you can join in and talk about our favorite sport that we all love to hate, professional wrestling.
professional wrestling. Remember when on the podcast back at the old place and I used to punch the wall?
Yep.
I just punched the corner of my end table. So as of this very moment, at the very end of episode 373, I am now the leader heading into the clubhouse for my Brainless for next week. Luckily for me, AEW, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and a whole other mess, a bunch of people have a chance to make sure I do not give it to myself after I just punched my hand in the thing. And the Giants play on Sunday for the first time this season, so there's plenty of ammunition.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all she wrote.
Yep.
We did our notes. I did my top 10. We talked about pirates and patchy people, which, by the way, I'm gonna think of like stable names for the patch people, the patchy pirates or whatever. I'm gonna have some fun with this. And we did our good, bad, and brainless. So I think we have touched base on everything.
Yes, we absolutely have not.
Wait a minute. What? R-Truth? What the hell are you doing here? Well, Brainless One, I just think it's funny that you guys bring up a F.M. Marks Hall of Famer every week, and yet I'm a WWE Hall of Famer too, and I should be doing this. R-Truth, that's the WWE Hall of Fame. You're not quite there yet, and yes, you are an F.N. Marks Hall of Famer. Oh, my bad. Truth, leave this to the OG. And who is the OG? Is that you, Curtis Axel? That is me, Brainless One. And why are you the OG? That's because today, September 6th of 2024, at a whopping 3,512 days, I, F.M. Marks Hall of Famer, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. So, for episode 373 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F.M. Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
I am the Brainless One. Make sure you mark out
with your guac out. See you, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go Giants!
Yeah.
Yeah.